section of the International Bar Association and leads up their International Legal Studies section on immigration. Then we have Praveen Hebal. Hebale, thank you. I know I sometimes need help with these things. He currently heads the mobility department at Capgemini here in India. Has about 14 years of experience, and so is one of you, right? And you'll recognize his expertise. Prior to coming to Capgemini in 2006, he worked with INSZoom Technologies for about 6.5 years in their immigration department. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering and is certified with the American Council on Immigration Personnel on Corporate Immigration Compliance as part of his professional affiliation. This time I want to have Cynthia take it over and proceed with the panel.
Immigration rules and enforcement around the world. It's affected a lot of countries differently, but a number of countries have reacted very restrictively to that. And as a result, we're seeing a lot of policies and a lot of laws and a lot more enforcement surrounding immigration worldwide. There's a major rise in this. Hi, can you go back? Thanks. Sorry, just the feedback on the speakers that I caused. There's a way to...
Make it.
So let's try this. That sounds much better. So a lot of countries, their approach to immigration has been impacted. Nope, can't hear. Okay.
Hello? Okay, we'll try this. A lot of countries' approach to immigration has been impacted by this recession. Now, there's a few different ways that this can occur. And throughout the sessions today, people are going to be talking about more specifics. I know in a little while, for example, Brendan Ryan's going to talk about EMEA specifically and how this impacts. I think in the introduction, there were a number of examples, some of which I'll talk about too, about how this is impacting countries and what countries are doing as a result. But some countries are enacting legislation. Now, we've seen this in the U.S., just with this piece of legislation that impacted a lot of companies that may be sitting here today. If you have more than 50% of your workforce that are combined H&Ls, you now have an additional fee to pay. That's a very big impact on a number of companies, and that's U.S. legislation that just happened. There's also been enforcement of laws that really weren't enforced before as a second way. Things in different countries, like in China. I was in China a couple of weeks ago, and I'm told that a lot of companies are experiencing more enforcement, and they're very surprised. They're very surprised because the law didn't change, nothing happened, the regulations didn't change, but in fact, things that had been on the books for a while in China are now being enforced, and the Olympics helped that to some extent. But we're seeing that in many different countries as well. And then just the rise of enforcement, of people showing up at your work site. We'll talk about different examples of that all throughout the day. But this is increasing, and we expect it will continue to increase, and you need to be prepared. And there's many different consequences of expecting that will happen. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of us that have been doing this a lot of years, it's 25 years since I have been practicing immigration law, once you get a law on the books that's enacted during a time of great restriction, it's very hard to change course quickly after that. The effects of what's happening now we'll see for a very long time. And while there may not be a lot we can do to fight directly, well, the impact of some of these on business, I think that being aware of what might be important to make countries aware of, to when you should speak up. Of course, some of this is driven by things that countries should protect. We recognize the need for countries to protect their workforce. Many people are getting elected because they're saying we're going to protect the workforce here. And so it's become an election point in countries across the world. Just recently, just a week ago or so, the United States had an election. And it was one of the big points in the election. And I'll show you in just a minute one of the ads that ran in that election. They keep trying to show it to you, but I'm not ready yet. Nope, I'm not ready yet. I'll tell you when. But at the same time, there's a dichotomy because companies are driven by a need to do business at lower costs and also to meet client demands more quickly. When you get a contract, you need to be able to be there quickly. You need to beat your competitors. You need to be able to match the price that you bid for that contract. And all of those are demands on companies. Now, companies are going to realize where they need to go to be able to meet those demands. Companies are going to go to the sources where they can. And a lot of companies are being very smart about that. We represent a lot of large companies. One of the companies we've worked with for many, many years, a couple decades, recently announced that they're laying off a lot of their HR people in the United States. And they're moving their HR centers to Panama. Now, we've seen this happen to a lot of companies, to China, to the Philippines, to India, to name to Mexico, name your country. This is a common thing. But the effect on politicians in the United States is great. Okay, now you can change the slide. This is from an ad that recently ran in California. Carly Fiorina, who was a former HP CEO, ran for the Senate in California. And her opponent, Barbara Boxer, who's the incumbent, ran ads with people, a lot of people saying, I got laid off by Carly Fiorina and she moved my job abroad. These are the ads that ran, and they're very frightening to Americans. And these are the sort of things, it's not just in the United States, that we're facing all over the world, in Germany, in the UK, all over the world. The countries are facing groups of people that are angry about perceived immigration or people coming into their country or jobs being moved abroad to people in those countries. And it's a very important dynamic because a lot of decisions on immigration are being made as a result of some of these things. Thank you. Next slide. So what are the trends we see in global enforcement? I think that we've already addressed some of those already, but just to go through it, I think a lot of you may see these. There's an introduction of more penalties for noncompliance. The penalties for doing something non-compliant has gone way up. And even the penalties that were on the books when they weren't enforced, there's much more enforcement. We're seeing that in every country, certainly across the world. There's also significant investments in biometric and information sharing technology. And in fact, this can't be discounted. Now, some of you are getting business as a result of that. There are a number of technology companies that are providing this technology to countries. So there's some positiveness in that as well. But with the advent of being able to have much more biometric information, the data, the satiation or the desire for more data is risen on the part of countries. And populations are expecting their countries to know more information because we're in